It's 6 p.m. on a Thursday here in Korea. Welcome to Arirang News. I'm Daniel Che. Let's start with the headlines. To no one's surprise, the U.S. Federal Reserve raises its key interest rate for the first time in almost a decade. What's the likely effect on Korea? We'll have an overview. The U.S. and Korea have settled on a new set of guidelines for the transfer of live biochemical samples to Korea after live anthrax samples were accidentally shipped here from the U.S. last spring. On this, the fourth anniversary of Kim Jong-il's death and the beginning of the Kim Jong-un era, we take a look at the changes the young leader is making to solidify his grip on power. The U.S. Federal Reserve finally made its move, carrying out the first rate hike in nearly a decade, a significant step away from measures rolled out during the global financial crisis. Shin Se-min starts us off.
It was a liftoff everyone had been waiting for. Ending its 7 years of quantitative easing policy, the Federal Reserve announced it will increase the federal funds rate by 1/4 of a percentage point, bringing it to 0.25 to 0.5%.
Since March, the committee has stated that it would raise the target range for the federal funds rate when it had seen further improvement in the labor market and was reasonably confident that inflation would move back to its 2% objective over the medium term. In our judgment, these two criteria have now been satisfied.
Saying that further increases will take place gradually, the FOMC added the rate hike reflects the committee's belief in improving conditions in the U.S. economy and that it hopes to see continual strengthening. The U.S. labor market added 211,000 jobs in November, totaling some 2.3 million jobs in the past 3 months. And the Fed is hopeful that inflation is starting to climb toward its target rate of 2%. The Fed's policymakers say they expect the short-term rate to stand at around 1.5% by the end of 2016. They forecast that number will increase to 2.5% by the end of 2017 and will not get close to normal levels of around 3.5% until 2018. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Following the Fed's announcement, Korea's economic policymakers gathered for a meeting early Thursday. Because the move was expected, their reaction was calm, with officials pledging to keep a close eye on any new market developments. Hwang Ji-hye shares with us Korea's cautious optimism.
A short-term limited impact. That's how Korea's economic policymakers assess the effect of the Fed's rate rise on the domestic economy. They say the country's strong fundamentals will shield the economy from any immediate shocks.
Korea's vast current account surplus and foreign reserves, as well as its fiscal soundness, will distinguish Korea from other emerging markets.
Korea's top central banker Lee Ju-yeol added to the cautious optimism, saying the Fed's rate rise is not necessarily a cause for concern at this time, as the move was widely expected and the pace of the increase will be gradual. In fact, the local stock market and the foreign exchange front remained calm. The benchmark Kospi edged up around 0.5% to close at 1,977.96, while the Korean won weakened slightly against the greenback. Still, there are lingering concerns about the effect of the Fed's rate hike on other emerging markets or oil-rich countries and the toll it could take on the domestic economy, as Korea's exports to emerging countries account for almost 60% of all outbound shipments.
The corporate debt risk could rise in oil-rich countries and in some emerging markets, which will put a damper on Korea's exports.
Given that Korea's economic policymakers have pledged to strengthen its monitoring of developments in the global market, especially in emerging Asian countries, and promised to keep on updating its contingency plans if necessary. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Shipments of biological samples from the U.S. to Korea are now bound to a new set of guidelines. This comes after some 8 months of investigation by a joint Korea-U.S. working group, which was established following a live sample of deadly anthrax being mistakenly sent to a U.S. military laboratory located in Osan, Korea, back in April. The probe also showed that this type of shipments happened more than a dozen times. Our Defense Ministry correspondent Kim Hyun-bin gives us the details.
Korea and the U.S. have agreed on establishing a new set of guidelines to regulate U.S. forces Korea's shipments of live biochemical samples entering Korea. This comes after a live anthrax sample was mistakenly sent to the USFK biochemical laboratory at Osan Air Base in April. Since then, a joint Korea-U.S. working group was formed to look into whether the anthrax sample was properly handled, as well as measures that can prevent similar cases from happening.
At no time were ROK or U.S. personnel in any danger of exposure as a result of our compliance with established safety procedures. The Bacillus anthracis sample was safely packaged by the United States Department of Defense, shipped by Federal Express, and stored, handled, and destroyed by USFK in accordance with established safety procedures.
But this wasn't the first time the USFK brought in anthrax samples to the country. Initially, the USFK told Korea in May that only one anthrax sample had entered the country. But Korea's defense ministry revealed for the first time on Thursday that a total of 16 samples had been shipped since 2009, including the one in April.
It was also confirmed that anthrax test samples were shipped to Korea 15 times from 2009 to 2014 for the purpose of equipment testing and proficiency training.
The new guidelines will allow to jointly search any biochemical package coming into the country.
The recommendation includes a notification process with information such as the shipping and receiving organization, the type, purpose and quantity of the sample, method of transport, and so on.
The guidelines, which went immediately into effect, were signed during the biannual Joint Committee meeting of SOFA on Thursday. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Korea has unveiled its TX trainer fighter jet designed specifically for sale to the U.S. Air Force. It's a spin-off from its T-50 supersonic trainer, also known as the Golden Eagle, that has already been exported to 4 countries, including Indonesia and Iraq. Korea wins the U.S. bid for 350 trainer jets. It would be worth some $8.5 billion U.S. dollars. Attending the unveiling ceremony, President Park Geun-hye said the alliance between South Korea and the U.S. will become even stronger if Seoul wins the deal. She added that the government is pledging its full support to the nation's aerospace sector, which creates added value and thousands of jobs. In its bid to replace its aging fleet, Washington is set to buy the new jets next year, with consortiums led by Boeing and Saab likely to compete with the Korean TX aircraft. Seoul's Unification Minister Hong Yong-pyo says trading reunions for war-separated families for the resumption of a long-stalled tour program, as North Korea has requested, would be inappropriate. His remarks at a debate with senior journalists on Thursday come on the heels of a recent round of high-level talks between the two Koreas that broke down over Pyongyang's displeasure with Seoul's refusal to greenlight the Mount Kumgang tour program, once an important source of revenue for the North. Tours to the resort were halted in 2008 after a South Korean tourist was shot dead by a North Korean guard. Hong said that on the one hand, he feels sorry for the separated families, but stressed the government cannot give away a criterion that's important to handling long-term relations with Pyongyang. Today, December 17th, marks the 4th anniversary of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il's death. Kim Jong-un, who took power after his father died, has built a fierce reputation for being ruthless with his reshuffles. Our Connie Kim takes a look at how Pyongyang's power structure has changed over the last 4 years.
These were the top 7 aides of the late North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, who were all in the front row at his funeral. Fast forward 4 years, and the only ones who remain are Kim Gi-nam, head of North Korea's propaganda ministry, and Choi Tae-bok, the chairman of the Supreme People's Assembly. The rest, they've either been removed from their positions or put to death. Kim Jong-un's reign of terror continues to this day. Former Defense Chief Hyun Young-chol was publicly executed in April, and Workers' Party Secretary Choi Dong-hae has reportedly been sent to a rural collective camp for so-called re-education. More than 70% of senior officials in the party, military, and the government have reportedly been replaced during the young leader's relatively short reign. The list of the deposed includes Hwang Byung-seo, director of the General Political Bureau of the Korean People's Army, and Cho Young-won, deputy department director of the Workers' Party's Central Committee. Hwang and Jo have risen to become key officials, assisting Kim Jong-un 81 and 41 times respectively this year. North Korea experts in Seoul say Kim Jong-un replaced most of his father's aides with those loyal to him to head off a possible uprising against him. But now, after 4 years at the helm, he's gained a certain amount of confidence.
Kim has gained confidence in his leadership during his 4 years in power, and he is expected to reduce his dependence on his father's close aides after the Workers' Party Congress in May.
That's why many observers in Seoul believe Kim will announce another reshuffle in the coming months to cement his grip on power with relatively young officials in their 40s and 50s. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
A U.S. expert on North Korea assessed the communist state could deploy a hydrogen bomb with a yield of 100 kilotons by the year 2020. Joel Witt, editor of 38 North, said during a press briefing in Washington on Wednesday that they project that within the next 5 years, Pyongyang could have a single-stage thermonuclear weapon 5 times more powerful than the atomic bombs dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. He also forecast the regime could make significant progress on a 2-stage H-bomb, which is a larger-yield nuclear weapon. The assessment comes after Kim Jong-un recently claimed his state is in possession of a hydrogen bomb. Canada's Prime Minister expressed tremendous concern for the Korean-Canadian pastor who was sentenced to life with hard labor in North Korea. Justin Trudeau on Wednesday demanded that Canadian officials be allowed to see Im Hyun-soo to check on his well-being, especially considering his fragile health. A spokesperson for Canada's foreign ministry condemned Pyongyang, saying denial of access was a serious diplomatic violation. Canada cut diplomatic ties with Pyongyang in 2010. Im has been held by communist regime since February and was sentenced to a lifetime of hard labor for crimes against the state on Wednesday. An Cheol-soo continues his nationwide tour to build support for his new political movement in South Korea. 3 more lawmakers announced they are following in An's footsteps and quitting the party he co-founded. Park Ji-won has the latest on the ripples An's departure has created.
Newly independent lawmaker An Cheol-soo embarked on a 2-day visit to Korea's western Jeollado province on Thursday to drum up support in the region. In a press conference held in the cities of Jeonju and Gwangju, both considered liberal strongholds, An said he had to leave the party and start his own movement because he wasn't able to remake the party from within. Also on Thursday, less than a week after An's departure from the party he co-founded, 3 NPAD lawmakers close to him announced they are following his lead. In a press conference on Thursday morning, 2-term lawmakers Moon Byung-ho and Yoo Sung-yup and 1st-term lawmaker Hwang Ju-hong said they are leaving the party because it has failed to provide voters with hope and a vision for the country. They said they will aim for a new kind of politics that prioritizes the livelihoods of the people.
We will fight the Saenuri Party's pro-business policies while separating ourselves from the obsolete ideological politics of the opposition bloc. We will defeat the Saenuri Party with policies for the people.
The party div left is in disarray after An's departure, which exacerbated a growing internal conflict over the party's direction. The defections represent another setback for current party leader Moon Jae-in, whose leadership was already being tested after floor leader Lee Jong-un went on a partial strike last week. While Moon said he will forge ahead with efforts to reform the party, he's facing strong criticism from within the party about the current situation.
Both Moon and An have caused the public, which had been hoping for a healthy opposition bloc, so much frustration and despair, and they are not contributing to the development of Korean politics.
Meanwhile, the ruling Saenuri Party continued to criticize both An's new political movement and the main opposition party for neglecting their legislative duties and pressed the opposition bloc to cooperate in passing a slew of pending economy-related bills. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Shifting gears now, if you're looking for a country to start a business, Denmark would be the ideal choice, according to Forbes. The nation topped the magazine's prestigious Best Countries for Business ranking this year. South Korea finished 33rd, dropping 1 notch from last year. Son Jung-in gives us a rundown of the list and why they made the cut.
Forbes gauges the business friendliness of the world's biggest economies and releases the results every year. And this year, Denmark has ranked number 1 once again. The list grades 11 different factors such as property rights, corruption, freedom, and investor protection, with each category equally weighted. Denmark scored high in all of the categories measured, but particularly well for personal and monetary freedom and low corruption, offering a transparent and efficient business climate. European countries, despite their sluggish economy, dominated the ranking, accounting for 2/3 of the top 25. New Zealand moved up 1 spot to number 2, followed by Norway, Ireland, and Sweden to round out the top 5. The U.S.-based magazine ranked South Korea as the 33rd best place to do business, down 1 spot from last year. The United States tumbled 4 spots to rank 22nd, scoring poorly on monetary freedom. The world's other biggest economies improved their overall standings. The UK and Japan both moved up 3 spots to number 10 and number 23 respectively. China rose to 94th. 144 nations were graded this year based on data from international organizations including the Heritage Foundation, World Bank, and World Economic Forum. 손정인, Arirang News.
That's the end of this newscast. As always, thank you for watching.